Hello, welcome to Proud Veteran Outreach. My name is Jim Jurowitz. We welcome you to our weekly show, which is designed to help you, the civilian, reach out to the vets that you know in your life who may be isolated or lost from the public life. We're looking to help them and support them, and sometimes when vets return from active duty, they isolate, and we need you to help us identify who they are and help us give them support. So the causes that isolation is having on military vets is that 23 military vets are committing suicide on a daily basis, and 25% of all of the homeless people out there are military related. And every day, 48% of all military vets are in pain. So we have had several shows that offer you the opportunity to reach out and find those vets. And we are sponsored by the Vet Center of Minnesota, which is located in Brooklyn Park, in New Brighton, and in Duluth. And we're also sponsored by the Proud Foundation. So today we are going to talk about how military vets are adjusting to finding jobs or in the workplace, and what roles employers are having, or what difficulties employers are having in understanding the military vet or the returning military vet. So today we have as our guest Matt Vatter from the Minnesota Department of Commerce.
Nice to meet you, Jim.
And Matt is a retired military vet, put in full time. So the fact of the matter is he's now 1 year back into civilian life and working for the Department of Commerce. He sees a lot of businesses that may be questioning, how they can get engaged with military vets. So I'm going to ask Matt to introduce himself, tell us what your military history is, and we'll go from there.
Sure. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, Jim. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak and engage and hopefully talk to some fellow veterans and employers out in the community. I started my military career right out of high school. I graduated from high school in 1981. I joined the active duty military. I was stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I was a helicopter mechanic with the 82nd Airborne Division until 1984. I left active duty and went back to my home in eastern Wisconsin and then started school. I was undergraduate program in secondary education at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, during which time I was a member of the Wisconsin National Guard. So I continued my service in a Guard capacity while I went to school, and then stayed as a traditional Guardsman for a number of years. And in 2000, I moved to Minnesota and joined the 34th Infantry Division, Red Bulls, in the Minnesota National Guard. As an officer, I transitioned from an enlisted soldier to an officer in 1988. And I continued my career with the Minnesota National Guard until my retirement with the full-time force as the Director of Strategic Plans and Policy for the state of Minnesota. And I left active service with the Guard on the 31st of August of last year.
Okay. So the Red Bull, they seem to have a little prestige in this marketplace here. What is the identity of them, and were you deployed?
Yeah, the 34th Infantry Division has a long and storied history in the U.S. military, starting in 1917 with its formation in preparation for expeditionary force deployment during World War I. The vast majority of the history of the Red Bulls, the historic piece of it, occurred during campaigns in World War II, North Africa, Central Italy. General Jack Vesey, who recently passed away, one of the storied members of the Red Bull history.
So it may be that there's a lot of people who are employed out there or who own businesses may be former members of the Red Bull as well, probably.
Yeah, a lot of Red Bulls, current and past, are strong members of the community, business owners, significant responsibility within established companies and such. So yes, there's a fairly strong lineage, not just in Minnesota, but in the upper Midwest of Red Bull history.
And you work for the Minnesota Department of Commerce. And so what is the Minnesota Department of Commerce and what is your job there?
Well, the Department of Commerce oversees a variety of business units across the state. The general area in which Commerce operates is in energy. So we have a regulatory and oversight in all aspects of energy production, distribution, and consumption across the state of Minnesota. We also are in insurance, and it's all manners of insurance, property and casualty, healthcare, and the like. Oversight and regulatory responsibilities for financial institutions, investment banking, financial advisors and such. We do all of those different programs within Department of Commerce. My specific job is to oversee the enforcement division within the Department of Commerce. We do all the investigations and civil level enforcement on both fraud investigation if we have perpetration of investment fraud, insurance fraud, and the like, and then consumer complaints within all of those different business branches as well.
Interesting. So we had a show with the SBA on. Do you interface with the SBA at all?
In some respects, we do. We have a large population of businesses and entities that have an ancillary relationship with the department in one way, shape, or form. We really focus on creating partnerships and collaboration across all the different aspects of business within the state of Minnesota.
So you say you're the Assistant Commissioner of Enforcement. That sounds like it's a discipline. How has your military history, military career helped you with your current job?
Well, it's a rather interesting path for me. The current commissioner, Commissioner Steve Kelly, was an instructor of mine during a master's program that I attended here recently at the university. And Steve taught a class on public policy, and I was, increasing my knowledge within the security technologies realm. And we developed a relationship through the university. And Steve reached out to me specifically because of my military leadership responsibilities and a lot of the diverse types of things that we had to deal with, discuss, manage in the context of military operations. And he believed that my experience and my professional leadership skills and training would be a benefit to the state of Minnesota and specifically to the Department of Commerce.
Yeah, it seems like it would be. I am an entrepreneur in civilian life myself, and certainly register enough business names with the Secretary of State. Does the Secretary of State answer to your department, or is it vice versa? What is the relationship with the Secretary of State?
Well, all the different entities within the state of Minnesota have their specific areas of responsibility. We are not subordinated to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State is not subordinated to us. We are separate entities within, but we do work together. The Commerce Department works with all the rest of the different agencies and departments within state government to make sure that the rules, regulations, and laws are fairly applied across all of the entities.
So is it fair to say that every business in the state of Minnesota is accountable to the e-commerce department or the Commerce Department?
No, not really.
Okay.
The Commerce Department has a specified mandate by the legislature and under statute of who we govern and who we regulate and supervise. And as I had mentioned, they fall within the realm of energy, insurance, financial institutions as a broad umbrella. And then there's some smaller agencies that fall within those larger contextual structures that we have oversight and regulatory responsibility for.
So you're an advocate and an evangelist for military vets in the workplace. And you're doing outreach and trying to help and give back to some of the vets that might be struggling or in transition. How are you doing that outreach?
Well, I think any of us that have served are advocates for fellow veterans. We always tend to focus on those that are in need specifically and immediately. So veterans that are struggling with difficulties in reintegration, that are having a hard time kind of finding their place outside of the structure that the military normally offers. That tends to be where we focus time and attention, and it's important that we do that. There are a variety of different organizations that I work with and can refer fellow veterans that are in trouble or who are struggling in general. Minnesota has been fantastic as far as being on the cutting edge of a lot of the things that help. The Yellow Ribbon program that we are quite familiar with here in the state of Minnesota is a Minnesota program. It started here in the state and has proliferated across the United States as a named Department of Defense program in support of veterans.
For the civilians out there that don't know what a Yellow Ribbon program is, can you tell us?
Sure. The Yellow Ribbon program is a network of community support activities and agencies that help not only military veterans, but currently serving military members and their families.
So active military members.
It's active military members, it's National Guard, it's Reserve, it's also retired, it's recently deployed and no longer serving, that still require some of the services and support that can happen within the community. It all started thinking, if you think about it, from an active duty perspective. If I'm a soldier on active duty, the fort or the base that I'm at basically is a self-contained community that has all of the different services that I might need, right? It has childcare, it has legal services, it has finance and banking services. All of those things are dedicated to support the needs of the military member and their family. As the National Guard and the Reserve and the general military population started to expand after 9/11, we saw a need to develop that type of support and assistance within our communities as a National Guard and a Reserve entity. A number of years ago, we came up, I believe it was General Shelito and General Nash, the adjutants general for the state, came up with a kind of a concept of a Fort Minnesota, to where we would build a network within the state, very similar to what you would see on an active duty base, of concerned communities and citizens that wanted to contribute and help. And that was basically the birth of the Yellow Ribbon program. Community-based volunteers that are willing to provide the types of services that soldiers and families could need.
So from the Department of Commerce, how many businesses do you think you engage with? Or do you have a register or directory to have an idea what number in the state of Minnesota?
I'm sure I could dig into the database and find that, but I don't have that number off the top of my head.
That's fine. That's fine. What I'm looking for is the fact that that number of businesses could be hiring military vets. And last year we did there was a military vet career fair. Mm-hmm. And so we went around to all of the companies that were looking to hire military vets. And some of them have pretty significant programs, one of them being General Mills.
Sure.
It's their biggest employee outreach program. So is the Department of Commerce engaged in career fairs? Because there seems to be a few of those.
Sure, absolutely. The state of Minnesota in general, as a hirer, is very active in a lot of the different ways to generate interest in careers within the various departments. The Department of Commerce is no different. participate in various types of career fairs. We have engagement with a lot of the different entities that are providing either entry-level, mid-level, or advanced-level employment into the department for the various skills that we need. It's a very diverse environment in which to work from a skills perspective. So there's not any one group. We just don't need financial managers or bankers or insurance experts or those types of things. There's a broad scope. I work with lawyers. I work with police officers. I work with folks that have experience in all manner of industry across the spectrum. So yeah, it's an opportunity for folks that want to continue their service, especially if you're a military veteran. You have developed a set of skills
Right.
over the course of your career, and those skills can be applied in a variety of different areas.
So your personal skills in leadership and training and business development, your advocacy and evangelization towards military vets, is there some kind of group or agency that might be available for vets to go to who might have skills but don't have the courage? Is there some place that they could reach out?
Well, I would recommend that the first place that a veteran could start if they're looking for help within the state of Minnesota is via the DEED website. The state of Minnesota has a fairly prolific web of support agencies to help not only veterans, and veterans is a core of that, but any person seeking employment for skills development and preparation to enter the workforce. There's a lot of great programs. The education department, the employment departments within the state of Minnesota provide some great resources to be able to pump those skills up.
So last week we had the YMCA on, and the YMCA is creating some outreach to help vets with PTSD and other forms of issues that they deal with, but their door is also open, and a lot of people don't know this, but their door is also open to the use of their facilities for meetings. So, and there's 24 locations for the YMCA in the Twin Cities. Again, I'm an entrepreneur, so as an entrepreneur, I'm looking to help those vets become more comfortable to walk into a YMCA and find some community and camaraderie there. So is it within your scope, or is it within the scope of the Department of Commerce to lend some kind of support to training or educating some people who might volunteer at a local YMCA to build community with those reps seeking employment?
Well, the actual training aspect of things is outside of the realm of what
Right.
the Department of Commerce does. But from a personal perspective and from what we can all do as professionals is we can point people in the right direction to the right agency to provide those types of training opportunities and experiences. As far as connecting military to military, it's very easy for us to establish relationships with other soldiers, right, and other service members in general, and kind of just help to discuss and work through some of the issues that they might be experiencing, because all of us have developed a fairly prolific network of people that we can reach out to. It's just being humble enough to identify when it is that you need to do that reach out, right? And I think one of the biggest challenges that we face individually as service members is the desire to not be seen as weak. We have been working very, very diligently to overcome the mental health issues associated with and the stigma that is often attached to that. I think we have been doing a fairly decent job in the military of talking about and kind of eroding some of that stigma against mental health. And I think as far as transitioning and moving from active duty and deployments into the civilian workforce, some of the stigmas of, hey, I need help, we need to work as hard to break those down as well. And it's not, there's no shame, there's no weakness involved in reaching out to friends and associates. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have a strong network of folks that I have worked to try to develop over the years.
Not easy.
And it's just a matter of being open to talk to a lot of different people, and it's as easy as sitting down and having a coffee. You know, I met with a gentleman this morning. For no other reason, just to develop a relationship and to try to get to know and understand from somebody else's perspective how they're looking at the industries in which they serve. As veterans, it's imperative that we do the same thing, because for as big as the military can seem, it's a very, very small entity within the fabric of our society. So as you're in your careers and as you're doing work, it's easier for National Guard and Reserve because a traditional Guard service member or a reservist is within the community regardless anyway, so you're building those relationships. But from an active duty perspective, it could be somewhat difficult, especially if you've been gone from your home state for 15, 20 years.
Right.
Then coming back and trying to reestablish and build those relationships can be a daunting measure.
Well, I referenced your leadership because one of the issues that comes up is that most people who have been in the military, are used to listening to orders and are not used to being in a position to make a decision on their own or without approval. And yet in the business world, you have that freedom to be able to make a decision on your own. And so there is a psychological adjustment that comes with that. So let's address another issue in where we see where we could use your help. And that is, we reach out to the VFWs and the American Legions, and what we're seeing is that there's a gap between the millennial returning vets and the baby boomer senior vets that are out there, and there's a communication gap going on there that needs some help. Do you have some point of reference that could, I would say more so for the baby boomer vets, to invite the millennial vets to feel more comfortable coming into their domain?
Boy, that's a great question and a sticky one.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
This is Matt speaking. Okay.
Matt the trainer.
This is Matt the retired guy.
Okay.
This is no reflection or representation of the Department of Commerce. This is just Matt speaking.
Good boy.
I believe that the organizations, the veteran support organizations, the VFW and the American Legion, really need to look at changing. It can't be the organization that was put in place at the end of World War II and in Vietnam to support that era of veterans. Our Vietnam era veterans are incredibly important. They've been ignored for so many years, and we owe them so much, right? And it's something that we can never ignore. But if what we want to do is create an organization and organizations that are going to support the need of the current group of veterans and moving forward, we need to rethink the way that these organizations are chartered, the way that these organizations facilitate activities, and the way that they approach the future needs of this group of veterans. I don't believe that that's going to happen within the current construct of the way that leadership is delineated within the organizations. There is I've been here for a long time, it's my turn to lead mentality that I have experienced in some of the organizations that I've been with. Well, it's kind of hard to change the paradigm if we just continue our history, right? This is the way that we've always done it. This is the way that I'm going to do it. I don't know that we're going to get to where we need to get to, and we're going to create an environment that's going to invite a lot of these folks in. When I was growing up, going to the bar and socializing was really the way that things worked. And I go to the Rosemont VFW on Saturdays for taco, and I hook up with a bunch of the guys that I know, and we sit around and have conversations. It's a great time. But that's not how the soldiers that I led, that's not how they socialize.
Right.
That's not what they do anymore. So the VFW and the Legion as physical entities are not the draw that they were for my generation of soldiers. So what we have to do is rethink how those organizations need to be within the environment in order for those soldiers to find value in that. Now, they do find value in the relationships with other soldiers and the engagement that those organizations have, not only within the community, but also at the national level in advocacy for veteran issues and veteran programs. They appreciate it, they understand it, and they want to support it. It's just it's going to manifest itself in a different way.
Great. I appreciate you evangelizing about that, because it's an important topic. So you have agreed to be a mentor, or are willing to be a mentor. How would you like the civilian that may be watching, or the veteran that's watching this show, reach out to you? Do you want them to contact you at Department of Commerce? Do you want them to email you? How would you like to be reached?
Well, I think the best way to reach is probably through LinkedIn.
Okay.
And just go into LinkedIn, and you can use the search feature, find my name,
Okay.
and reach out to me via LinkedIn, and we can connect that way. That's probably the best way.
Okay, we may edit this and put your LinkedIn address on the screen here. So thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate you coming in. I want to
pleasure,
know
Jim.
if you're available for an advisory panel if we grow this outreach with the YMCA. Are you available to?
Sure, I'm
be
always
consulted?
happy to help. If I can fit it into my schedule, I'm
Well, great.
absolutely happy to do so.
Super good. Okay, thanks a lot, Matt, for coming in. We
Right.
certainly learned a lot.
Thanks, Jim.
And
Appreciate
for you
it.
civilians out there, don't hesitate to contact the Department of Commerce for whatever reason you need in your business world. Thank you very much for watching.